Welcome, I'm Pat O'Melia, and this is the Hurricane Ian, or Ian, whichever way you want to pronounce it, relief fundraiser. As you're all aware, there was a devastating hurricane at the end of September in Florida and the Carolinas. Florida really got walloped there. And if you recall, in our problems when we had Superstorm Sandy here, we had a tough go for a good 10 days. Many of us didn't have electricity. It is 5 to 10 times worse in Florida. So if you can, you'll see the donation on the bottom of the screen. Please, $5, $10, whatever you can spare. Remember how we were with Sandy? Way worse down there right now, and they can use all the help. And all the proceeds are going to the American Red Cross. They're on the scene down there. They're doing the best possible job they can do, but they need your help. Now, on the fundraiser today, we have 3 hosts. You have myself, my buddy John Heinis from Hudson County View and the Hudson County View Live television program, and Fernando Uribe. He's with Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe and a few other programs. Gentlemen, welcome to the fundraiser.
Pat, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Pat, it's amazing to be here.
Yes, I'd rather be here under different circumstances than another hurricane.
Absolutely, absolutely.
We did a fundraiser back with Hurricane Florence with the American Red Cross. Hopefully we do a better job this time. We got quite a few people coming in. We did some pre-recorded pieces with the Mayor of Toms River, the BA in Seaside Heights, and the President and CEO of the Jersey City Medical Center, Mike Ploriski. And we were slated to have Steve Sweeney, Mayor Steve Fulop. I think Mayor Steve Fulop is set for 5:45. You got people in studio, remote. You know, we'll all take turns interviewing. We'll all take turns in this big chair. Are you used to being in a chair like this? Isn't kind of your set. You're usually behind the big broadcast set.
Yeah, it's going to be new for me, but that's okay.
You're a little low, you know? It's like going from an SUV to a car.
It is. I'm open to trying new things. I'm looking forward to it.
Fernando and I, we're used to this. I'm just not used to interviewing people anymore. I haven't done that in quite a while.
It's always fun to do that, you know.
But I do have my ever-present container of coffee, and it is styrofoam. You can still get styrofoam, you just got to get it from Amazon.com. What do you want to talk about? We got devastation. We can go on and on about the hurricane, but it's all the gloom and doom. You know, we all cover Hudson County. Is there anything you want to talk? We got the affordable housing overlay that was voted on last night.
Yeah, I mean, I found it interesting, Pat, that we heard from Ward C Councilman Rich Baggiano, of course, a good friend of yours and someone that's now serving in his 3rd term. And he was really adamant that he said thousands of people, he's heard from 15 neighborhood groups that were all against this, and he really wanted to push it. You know, we made that motion to table, and Councilman Gilmore and Councilman Solomon backed him up, but at the end of the day, they didn't get it.
The other 6 didn't.
They didn't, and they went to the vote, and it passed 7-2, and only Gilmore and Baggiano voted no. So
you know, it went old school. I was getting contacted by neighborhood and civic associations I haven't spoken to in a couple of years, and they just started compiling a list. They were all working together, and there were. I was sending some of the group's names to the council people. Said, you know, you should really consider this. As you know, the heads of the families in the Heights were all against it, and there were groups, Lincoln Park Association, Persian Field, all over the city that were. I won't say against. I shouldn't use that word. They wanted more time to understand it, vet it, and further review it.
Yeah, some were against, but a lot just said, I need more information, and I think it's rushed, so on and so forth, as you just basically said. So, you know, I actually attended the Riverview Neighborhood Association meeting on Tuesday, just as a private citizen. You know, it's my neighborhood. It's actually Mayor Fulop's neighborhood, too, and him and Councilman Soleil were there. And yeah, a lot of people were just concerned about teardowns. You know better than most people how many teardowns have been in the Heights in recent memory. And they were concerned about that impact, and they were concerned about how many affordable units are actually going to come to Ward D. So well, I think reasonable concerns.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the fence. I think it's a neighborhood destroyer, but as a property owner, it just increased the value of your property. Where, you know, we own a 3-family home in the Heights.
Right.
Now somebody can demo that, and they will, if that's what they want to do, demo it, and they can build, you know, as much density as they can get here. You're talking maybe 8, 10, 12 unit building on a footprint that was once for 3-family. As I understand the AHO, that's how I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think? You think the council should have waited, or you think they might as well just get it over with?
I would have liked to have vetted more. They should have gone around to the city with all the associations and get as much feedback as possible.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you. I mean, and obviously we'll hear some feedback from the mayor about this momentarily, but I mean, they've tabled much lesser items for much longer periods of time, right?
I thought it was rushed, especially with all the organizations that had an issue with it. You read it?
Well, Pat, I mean, the problem though too, it's a reminder about just the area we live in and how lifelong residents are being priced out. To your point about, yes, property values go up, but guess what? Your tax is gonna go up too. And that could be problematic, especially for a lot of elderly homeowners that are struggling to make these sort of property tax payments. Again, not every town's the same, right? And didn't we hear for the longest that Jersey City, even after the reval, that a lot of residents in the Heights and even downtown were feeling the crunch?
Well, downtown got walloped
Absolutely.
with the rebound.
But again, it lends itself to the bigger problem that, lifelong residents are getting priced out. And it's not just Jersey City. I mean, it's happening all over, even North Hudson. We're seeing it along the waterfront. We're seeing it in Union City. Well, not so much Union City, but I would say West New York and North Bergen. I mean, think about those properties on Tunnelly Avenue. Think about what used to be the old sort of motor home complex, and now it's condos just because it's accessible to the light rail, for example, or along Bergen Avenue. Look at that monstrosity right across the street from the light rail on Bergen Line. I mean, that's on West New York side, but it's going to make life difficult for a lot of business owners along Bergen Line and homeowners nearby because, yeah, your property goes up and that's great, but are you looking to sell or are you looking to stay there for a little while longer? It might be difficult.
Well, it depends on the age of the person with the homeowner. If you're running at the end of it, you're in your 70s, you're thinking of the value. I can sell the home off to Florida where I go after they clean up from the disaster that just hit them there. But if you're a young person trying to buy a house in Jersey City, it's going to be tough. And the problem with the additional density.
Sure.
Who is the density for? It's not for Jersey City people. It's for people who don't live here yet. And with this additional density, what I don't have is additional classroom space. We're maxed out. We're overmaxed in our schools. And I got to hire more cops. I got to hire more fire, and things just become more expensive. You want affordable housing, we got to get the city more affordable, which is something we can talk to Mayor Full about when we have him on.
And also, too, Pat, I'm sorry, John, I mean, but the problem is, again, it's a reminder about we live in the most densely populated county, not just in Jersey, in the country. And as to your point about having to hire more police, more fire, more EMT, our schools are overcrowded. Yeah, you know what? The NGA always likes to talk about, like, we have the best schools in the country. Well, that's debatable, but we also have probably the most overcrowded schools, especially in northern Jersey. And Hudson County is no different, Pat.
We don't even have schoolyards anymore. Hey, we got the school trailers and the schoolyard was so packed.
Yeah, I mean, downtown we saw the fight between the school and the neighborhood association there, just about the park.
Just for the park, yes.
Yeah, I mean, so, this is valuable. This is extremely valuable. So, yeah, I mean, look, definitely a lot of big picture things that we're not going to solve with one ordinance. But, while I think it wouldn't have hurt to postpone it, I would say I've written quite a few stories about this. I have looked over the ordinance and what it would actually do, the tier 1, the tier 2, where the 10% comes into 15%. From what I could see, it would be tough to get a much better ordinance that Fair Share would support. But, I do understand, why some people were upset,
Well, I don't know why Fair Share had so much sway in this when, like, the Riverview Association, the Fisk Park, and the Lincoln Park Association, many long-term organizations here didn't have the same sway with the city.
Fair point as well. I mean, as I mentioned at the top of the program, Councilman Baggiano pointed out, and for those of us that saw the council meeting or perhaps were in attendance, 15 neighborhood associations, that's not a small number. So, and he said that's probably equivalent to a few thousand people. I don't know if that's accurate, but it's at least a few hundred.
No, yeah, I'll go a couple of thousand. With 15, sure. I'd say a few thousand, yeah.
So, certainly that's far from unanimous approval as far as the constituents are concerned. So, and the other thing, it didn't sound like there was proactive community outreach. It sounded like there was reactive community outreach where they only met with the groups that requested a meeting.
It was kind of passive community outreach, maybe.
Yeah.
The groups that called me, nobody contacted them. For that matter, 2 of the groups said, we just found out about this. And they were asking what I can do, and I said, listen, I'll speak to the council people. And I was in touch with Mayor Fulop the whole time saying, you got a lot of organizations here that are concerned. We're trying this fundraiser, of course it's on the internet, so we're going nationally here. So Arkansas, hello. Please make a donation to the American Red Cross. Yeah, the people in the southern east states here, they got devastated by Hurricane Ian. How would you pronounce it? Ian or Ian?
I would say Ian. I'd say Ian.
Yeah. First time I'd seen it, I said Ian, and that was it. Ian, no, I said first time Ian. Now I try to get it right with Ian. You know, we got to talk about some national stuff when we get there. We can talk about immigration. That's a big, maybe that's why we need the additional density.
Well-
Well, it's not for Jersey City people, because we're already here.
Well, we're going to be here a lot longer than 2 hours if you
No.
want to talk
Yeah,
immigration.
especially with Fernando, yes.
Absolutely.
Again, this is a fundraiser for the American Red Cross, in particular for the people of Florida. And if you can donate $5, $10, whatever it is, please do. They need your help. You've seen it on TV. You've seen the devastation. And as you recall what happened to us here with the Superstorm Sandy, think about that like 5 or 10 times worse. That's what's happening down there now. Are we set for anybody yet? As I see movement? No, we're still going. What do you want to talk nationally?
Nationally,
Yeah, we got the immigration. You want to touch base on that? That's a hairy little subject.
we're
we wanna
never going to
touch
get
on.
Mayor Fulop on it if you're giving him the ball on
Well,
it.
as soon as Mayor Fulop jumps in, we'll be happy to bring him into the conversation.
Well, Pat, it's funny because think about it. We're 26 days out from, and I hate to sort of use this word because we hear it all the time, the most consequential midterm election of our lifetime. I don't want to go with that hyperbole, but it's consequential in the sense of in what direction the House and the Senate are going to go. We're seeing that inflation is still a problem, even after legislation.
Still a problem?
Well, yeah.
It's
even
a growing
after
problem.
even after legislation was passed, that's supposed to correct it. But I think that in New Jersey, here in Hudson County, nearby in Bergen County, like these are House races that aren't competitive. But in Central and South Jersey, that's different. And as Republicans historically possibly can win the House, right? Because the opposing party tends to do that. Republicans have a chance to win as many as 3 House seats, and that is considerable because they lost those 3 House seats 4 years ago. It's a different dynamic. Obviously, we're post-COVID now, right? But to your point about, let's say, density and residency and about, so the immigration issue, I mean, it's funny to me, right, where we're seeing migrants being shipped off to Manhattan, to as far north as Martha's Vineyard, right? And I get it. It's become a political football, right? Like red governors like Greg Abbott and DeSantis kind of feel like, you know what, we want to win here. We just want to be right and stick it to blue governors, right? But the problem is that the optic isn't the same. And now, even in Illinois, right, where we're seeing densely populated classrooms, densely populated cities, and what's going on, right? We see all these sort of activist groups that talk about, well, illegals, contribute to the economy. They pay taxes. But you know what they also do, though? They also consume and exhaust resources here because of overcrowding of schools. I mean, I know a lot of teachers in Hudson, Bergen, Essex County where classrooms aren't 15 to 20 kids, Pat.
No.
Okay, we're talking about 25, 30, in some instances 35. That's a hard learning environment for even the smallest of kids.
When I was in grammar school, it was easy. We always had like 30 kids in the classroom. That was not unusual. Now I understand it's like 15, 16 kids in the classroom. But, how many are like that? Not many. Do you have a problem with the migrants being shipped to different parts of this country?
Well, look, I mean, this is way above my pay grade, but I would just say there's no easy solution, number one.
That's right.
And number two, I think we're seeing partisanship from both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, what Governor Ron DeSantis did, he's a potential presidential candidate at 24. Like Fernando said, I mean, he's doing that to stick it to the Debs. And, on the ground here in New Jersey, when it looked like that there might be some of those families coming in through the Teterboro airport, that was going to be a media circus as well, right? If that came to fruition, obviously
Sure.
it didn't.
Yeah.
And look, I think, unfortunately, an issue like this that is very complex is not getting addressed properly by either party because everyone's thinking about 2024. And
Well,
nothing,
and that's a question too. The Democrats have been in control of the presidency, the Senate, and the Congress. Why didn't they just address the immigration issue then?
Pat, they've had this before.
Yeah.
Right after Obama, from 2009, 2010, they had the presidency. They had 60 votes in the Senate, so they could ram through whatever they wanted.
Now keep in mind, the Republicans had control too, and they didn't do anything either.
I mean, not a 60 seat majority like in 2010. Let's say 2009,
Well, that's true,
2010,
that's
right? So all this outrage about immigration, about reproductive rights, I don't think it's going to be codified for a while. But it's easy to weaponize these things, especially during election season, right? Like I've talked about it on the show here. Okay, the economy, immigration, crime. Those are the big 3 issues that are dominating this election cycle. Maybe not here in New Jersey, but go across the river, New York. It's a go to Philly. It's a disaster. Name any blue city, it's become dumb.
Baltimore, Chicago.
Yeah, Baltimore, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then to compound the problem is, well, one side is using it to, a good campaign slogan, right? The Republicans are running on, hey, listen, Democrats have been inept in our cities. Food prices have gone up. everything else, right? And then Democrats have said, well, we have to worry about reproductive rights. And but here in New Jersey, if you're a woman, I hate to break it to the ladies, but getting an abortion is the easiest thing to do in New Jersey. I mean, it's been codified into the state constitution already. It's state law.
I thought all the states should have just figured out how they wanted to handle that themselves. Home
That's
rule
fair.
on that.
But here in New Jersey, it's become such a good fundraising tool. Activist women want to just say, well, your rights are endangered. Not in New Jersey. Now, whatever they do in Alabama and Texas, I mean, no disrespect, unless somebody failed U.S. history, that's the 10th Amendment. That's federalism. So, I mean, again, I'm not really happy about it. I'm a pro-choice guy, but, hey, let the states do what they want.
Before we go to Chris Voss, we're still waiting on Mayor Fulop. Mayor Adams in New York City is looking for Fed dollars to deal with the migrants. Do you think he gets any?
But aren't they a welcoming city? Aren't they a sanctuary city? Excuse me. So the idea that now it's a problem, again, this is what drives me crazy, Pat, about people like Eric Adams. De Blasio was no different. This is just De Blasio 2.0. Basically, when you see the city, still the crime rate's the same, spending's out of control in New York City. It's just not safe. It's interesting to me about a lot of like the mayor from Mayor Lightfoot in Chicago. All these sort of liberal mayors are all talking about, well, we're a welcoming city, we're a sanctuary city, but well, if that's the case, now you're begging the federal government to bail you out.
I don't know who had the line, but it said everybody's a sanctuary city until the sanctuary comes.
Exactly.
But I don't see how Adams gets any money, the mayor of New York City, when this other border states there, they didn't get any money. You have to give them money before you give to New York City.
Of course.
Well, to answer your question, no, I don't think he does. But again, this is, going to come from decisions in D.C. that, we have no oversight over, right? I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. But my guess would be no. And, I think they're going to leave NYC to fend for themselves.
That's going to be tough.
And,
but even though it's not that many, it's like 20,000 migrants in a city alone of, what is it, about 10 million people?
I think it's about 9.
That's a small percentage.
But if there's no oversight at the border and we're just, again, the president appointed the vice president to oversee the border, how's that going? I mean, really?
Well, I think he just instituted some border restrictions. But let's go to Chris Voss. You're watching Hurricane Ian fundraiser. Please, $5, $10, whatever you can afford. We're going to go to Business Administrator Chris Voss from Seaside Heights. That was almost the ground zero for Superstorm Sandy. Let's look at Chris. Pat O'Melia here, Hurricane Ian relief fundraiser. And one way we can really appreciate the devastation of Hurricane Ian is to think back with Superstorm Sandy, which wasn't a hurricane, we all think it was, but it was a superstorm. And one of the guys that was on the front line and was there the day after is the business administrator for Seaside Heights, plus the historian for Seaside Heights, Christopher Voss, a friend of mine. Let's bring Chris in. Hey, Chris,
How you doing, Pat?
man? There we go. Look what I got. I got your book. The book that made you rich. No, maybe not rich.
Hardly.
But it is a good book. Can you get this on Amazon?
Yes. You can also get it at Barnes & Noble and different stores like that.
There's still bookstores? I didn't know
At
that.
Barnes, yeah,
There's
a few.
I thought they were all gone. But if you're interested in the history of Seaside Heights and the places you visited when you were a child, they're all in this book. For that matter, my studio's in this book. It was the Wonder Bar then. You could see him pulling up the railroad tracks on Central Avenue.
Right.
Seaside Heights, Christopher Voss. Chris, almost 10 years ago, you had a front row seat to Mother Nature with Superstorm Sandy. Tell me what's going through your head that night?
Well, leading up to the storm, we were going door to door, and there were a lot of people who just refused to evacuate. The fire department was out, and we were going door to door and essentially begging people to leave, and they didn't leave. And as the storm was hitting and becoming worse and worse, those were the people that the fire department and the police department and Triborough First Aid Squad were literally rescuing out of attics and rooftops. So that's the kind of thing that you tend to remember from a storm like that. And of course, coming over in the morning on the Deuce and a Half, driving across the bridge and through Pelican Island and rescuing people that were still on Pelican Island, and then finally getting to the boardwalk and seeing the roller coaster in the ocean. I mean, I think that moment is as surreal to me as being at ground zero about a week after September 11th, as I was.
Well, when you were on the Deuce and a Half, you were filming. Because
Yes,
on
I had a
YouTube,
handheld
there is-
camera.
Yep. You
Yeah.
filmed the
I was filming.
devastation. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was able to
For that
record.
matter, I really got to get used to the delay with these remotes. But in your video, and you can see it on YouTube, Seaside Heights, Superstorm Sandy, you come right to my kid's house, and then you turn the camera, but you can see the waters to the front step of my kid's house. When you say you would try, you're going door to door to get people to get off the island, Seaside Heights. Wasn't it just a month or so before when Governor Christie said, get off the beach? And then that storm didn't really do much damage. So that's probably why these people felt they could ride this one out.
And the hurricane that we had in 2011 too. We had a hurricane in the fall of 2011, and it kind of just blew over. We got a bunch of rain and some wind, and that was about it. And I think that was something that we were hearing actually as we were going door to door. People were telling us that they made it through that hurricane, and they would make it through Sandy. They regretted that, obviously, because a lot of people stayed in their homes and apartments, and they were either rescued that night or they got picked up the following day, and they were, a lot of them were just stuck here on the island because of what, the damage that was done to the bridge, and people couldn't get over here. There were a lot of pets that were all over the place because a lot of people had to abandon their dogs and cats and birds, etc. And as Hurricane Ian was hitting Fort Myers Beach, and now we know how many people lost their lives because they didn't evacuate and they drowned. That seems to be a common theme when a big hurricane is barreling up, either the East Coast or the Gulf Coast. It's a big challenge for law enforcement and fire departments to really get people to leave, especially people that have.
The number of fatalities are 103 to date.
And most of them drown.
Yeah, probably.
And most of them drown.
In the years now, Seaside Heights is no stranger to nor'easters or even the threats of hurricane. Wasn't it normal procedure that the people who own the stands on the boardwalk would get like a case of beer and they'd ride out the storm?
Historically, yeah, not anymore.
What kind of?
We take storms.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think people in Seaside Heights take storms much more seriously today and the past 10 years than we did before Sandy. I think it's now when we see a storm brewing, when you see on the National Hurricane Center where they show you the map and there's a little seed of a storm out by Africa, and it's going to proceed west. We don't look forward to those storms growing and coming up the eastern seaboard. It makes us very happy when they pass Cuba and Jamaica and just keep heading west. It's a little selfish, because we know it's going to land somewhere. But having gone through it, I think most business people in Seaside Heights are very relieved when they see a storm keep going west and not make a stop on the East Coast.
Well, with Seaside Heights, was it the Atlantic Ocean that did the damage, or was it the Barnegat Bay?
Well, the boardwalk damage was caused by the ocean, obviously. The Casino Pier and Funtown Pier, they were lost to the ocean because of the storm on that side of the island, of the peninsula. But most of the residential damage on the west side of town was clearly from the bayfront. And I know right now the state and Army Corps are working on a project to see if there's a way that they can protect that side of the barrier peninsulas along the coast, sort of like the dune protects the beaches now on the other side.
Well, I think in Seaside Park, they're talking seawalls, oyster beds, anything they can possibly dream up. They're just trying to find the money to implement all that.
And they have the experience of, they had dunes before a lot of the other towns had a dune line. So they know that there's things that they can do to protect themselves better, especially on the west side of the town. And with the Army Corps really focusing on it now, it's just a matter of time before there's some solution presented to the state and to the towns on the islands and peninsulas.
Well, I think with the Barnegat Bay, aren't they talking about raising the sewers or the pipes along the Barnegat Bay, that it doesn't, come up, it's not so low that when it gets high tide, that it comes up through the Seaside Heights sewers?
I know some towns have tried raising their roads on the west side of the towns. I know there's been projects like that in Nortley Beach, I think maybe Normandy Beach. We have a particular area town that we call the 400 block, down by Herring Avenue, but west of 35, that takes on a lot of water, even in just in a bad nor'easter or a bad storm. But raising the roads isn't going to be a solution everywhere, because it's just not going to be practical or feasible in a lot of areas that are already developed with homes. And asphalt driveways, because you're really talking about having to raise a lot of property to make that happen. Unfortunately, we just had a meeting internally 2 weeks ago with our engineer and our public works superintendent to talk about some Fema grants available, and we're looking at maybe buying some pumps that would be able to pump the water back into the bay. Down south in Florida, for instance, down like in the Keys, Key West. They're so used to those king tides that they have a lot of the governments have pumps that get deployed on the highways that are pumping the water back into the ocean and in the back bays faster than it's coming in. So we're at a point where we're looking at all kinds of different solutions, but I don't know if raising the road is going to be a solution for a place like Seaside or even Long Beach Island, because Long Beach Island, that main road gets flooded all the time when it's a bad storm or it's a super high tide. And sometimes you can't even pass. You can't even drive a car through the roads down there sometimes.
Well, that's so. Before I let you go, it's the doom and gloom of Mother Nature and Superstorm Sandy and Ian. There's a renaissance going on in Seaside Heights. There is construction going on all over town, 1-2 family homes. So there is a real future of a 12-month-a-year community in Seaside Heights.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that was started back in like 2015. We brought in the former Asbury Park city manager, Terry Reedy, and he kind of explained to us what they had been doing in Asbury Park and how maybe Seaside should go about it. And right now we're at that beginning phase. So I mean, there's a good vibe, notwithstanding what you read in the lamestream media, put it that way, about what's going on with the economy and all that. But we've got some big projects that are working their way right now through the approval system. Pretty much that would be CAFRA and DEP. We're really confident that once one of those projects has pilings in the ground and people start seeing a real rising happening on that property, that other properties on the boulevard are going to really start changing, And as you mentioned, there's been a lot of residential real estate development, and a lot of that, Pat, goes right back to Hurricane Sandy. I mean, a lot of that is that people finally, had to rebuild at some point. They got their insurance money or their FEMA money, and everybody had to either tear their house down or they had to rebuild it, but put it on pilings. There's been a lot of renewal because that's the positive. There was like this yin and yang of Sandy. I mean, the yin obviously was the devastation and the damage, but on the flip side, there's a lot of new things that have grown out of Sandy, and that's really helped spur the redevelopment that goes on today.
Well, I'm going to let you go, but I will say this. If you bought land in Seaside Heights 4 or 5 years ago, that was a good investment. All right, Chris, I appreciate your time. Be good.
Thanks,
Say
Pat.
hello to Chief
Thanks.
Boyd tonight. He's being honored as Police Officer of the Year, something like that, right?
He's being honored as Law Enforcement Officer of the Year by the Police Brotherhood Association of New Jersey.
Well earned. He's a cop's cop. Thank you, Chris. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
We're back live. Thank you, Chris Voss, the BA from the borough of Seaside Heights. Great place to vacation, by the way. My guest, well, you notice Heinis and Uribe left. We're not talking politics here, so those guys shot out of here. My guest is from the American Red Cross, Kimberly Getz.
You got it?
Bernie Getz.
Not
I want to see any of the older people here remember Bernie Getz. Kimberly, do you have any updates on how it's going in Florida?
No, absolutely. Pat, thanks so much for taking time out of your regular program to think of the Red Cross and all the workers we have on the ground in Florida and trying to help the Floridians out as best we can.
If we can help, we help.
Yeah.
We do the best we can.
No, absolutely. It's look, I think as New Jerseyans, we watch what's happening in Florida, and it strikes a nerve with us because
We'll bring back bad memories.
it does bring back memories. We've seen that kind of infrastructure damage, right? Let alone the property damage and loss of life and the other things that we're worried about. We know what it's like.
Well, I go back. I can only recall the power failures we had.
Yeah.
And I was lucky. I never lost electricity.
Oh, wow.
There was this one grid in Jersey City
You might have been
that
alone.
had light on
Yeah.
all the time. You know, people, there were gas zombies outside with cans walking around trying to get gasoline. They had my 50-inch TV and the window going there. We were closed in the shade.
Yeah.
I was thinking about painting the
You're going to
windows
get a
at
lot
one
of friends
point.
doing that. Yeah, I bet you.
But it was there was a clique of us that had it. The mayor had it, a couple of
Okay.
council people. It looked like all the politically connected people had electricity. But that when I go back, you know, we didn't get anything like the wind they have
Yeah.
in Florida. We didn't
Sure.
get flooded out. I live in the Heights for that matter, and I'm on a hill in Jersey City. We're not getting flooded. But I think back with the power failures
Yeah.
that the city of Jersey City suffered. It's so much far worse. But you know, when you see that footage like we have here, it brings you back to that. So
Sure it does.
I don't want to go
Yeah.
back to that again.
No, right. And so I think that's, the Red Cross has a role in this recovery effort, in this relief effort to
my
really work
Red
on.
Cross
I
truck
like.
right
I know
there.
there's an emergency response
Yep.
vehicle. It's a cute one too that you have. So we do have.
Did you guys bring me any this time? No?
No,
We got no
I didn't
swag?
know. I know.
Ah.
I got a pin for you, Pat. I'll give you a pin. when
Take the
I'm
pin. We
done.
got to get something out of this. So go ahead. I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. So right now, the Red Cross has 1,000 workers on the ground, and we're doing a few main things. We're doing a number of things alongside partners, but we're working on sheltering. So there are still a steady flow of individuals who are staying overnight in our shelters. So our shelter overnight population is around 1,600, and it hasn't really moved.
Where did you get the shelters?
We have shelters set up with partners. So there are a number of places right now that are operating congregate sheltering. They're large shelters, and they're mostly a little bit outside. We try to, when we shelter, bring everyone as close as possible, right, to where they need to be and where their resources are. But those shelters not only are giving people that have nowhere to go a safe place to be, but it's also doing a lot of wraparound care for other folks who are coming in and using that time to get a hot meal and meeting with our health and disaster mental health workers who are able to give people a lot of support and guidance that they need right now. They're
Well,
doing.
it's a big task. You got elderly, you got
It's a
disabled,
very big
you got
task.
children, you got young seniors.
We do. You got it. Yeah, and our shelter population is an aging population, right? So we have a lot of folks with some complex medical needs, and so we're working through all of those barriers with them to make sure they have what they need.
Well, that's what people don't understand. If you didn't go through this, and again,
Yeah.
Sandy was bad, but not like this. Yeah, you don't have your prescription medicine anymore. You don't need your CPAC or whatever medical prescriptions or equipment you need. All that's gone. There's nothing. You have nothing. You're home. You're a home went away. It's in the Atlantic Ocean somewhere.
Yeah. And that could be the case for some folks. So, we're with them. At the same time, we're working alongside partners like the Southern Baptist Relief Organization, who sets up these huge kitchens, mobile kitchens, and we're able to give them the food. They cook and prepare the food safely because that's something they do really well. And then our emergency response vehicles and volunteers kind of come along and load up and go out into the communities. So, you can picture families that are going through what's left of their home, right? They're trying to figure out what we're going to salvage, what we're going to do. Are these repairs, or are we going to have to find a new place to live? And the Red Cross is showing up with hot meals, a square meal. And we all can appreciate what that must feel like when there's no electricity, water. Giving folks out distribution of emergency supplies is a big piece of what we do, which includes, bleach and gloves and mops and buckets, and honestly, these big, tote bins, those plastic totes. And sometimes that's all that they're going to be able to save, so they have a bin now, and it's really, it's emotionally exhausting.
You have a
to
bin
think
now,
about.
and all what you have of your history and your belongings is now in that bin.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
horrible.
that's
That's
really
why
tough.
if you can, $5, $10, get a bin, You're trying to help the people as much as you can. Food, they need everything, really, right?
They do, yeah.
From clothes to medicine to food.
Sure,
to
everything.
lodging.
Yeah, so we're there as long as we need to be. We have, I'm really proud. We have 43 New Jersey Red Cross workers who have deployed to Florida. Some of them have gone 2 weeks. Our deployments for volunteers are 2 weeks long. So they've been on the ground, and some of them are already coming home, and we've started to send more folks out, and we'll continue to do that. So waves of volunteers will continue, likely for weeks and months to come.
Oh, yeah, going to be months, yeah.
Yeah.
Easy.
And it's great because we've also sent 2 of our emergency response vehicles, and 1 of our mission vehicles have gone down. So a couple weeks ago, kind of cheered off a couple of our volunteers who drove those vehicles from New Jersey, and they're joined up with volunteers from across the country who are all going in to help.
When these volunteers or Red Cross employees come back, does anybody record their memories?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They have some great, well, I don't want to say great, some interesting stories to say.
I think it's very bittersweet for most folks. They want to help. They're happy that they can help. They're happy that they're in a place in their life that they can give this kind of part of themselves.
I'm happy I'm not in that position and I can help you. Like right now, the reason we're doing this, I'm happy I can be in this position to help the people who need that help.
Sure. Well, here's the thing. I think not everyone can just deploy, to volunteer. But there's a lot of things we all can do from here. I think when we watch that kind of footage on TV, we think to ourselves, what can we do, right? How can I help these people from here? But I can't do this, I can't do that. But we all can do something. So, making a contribution is amazing. We appreciate it, and no contribution is too small to support this relief effort. Those funds will stay with our relief effort to support Hurricane Ian clients and the needs that are going on in Florida.
At least you get it right, Hurricane Ian. I have a problem with that.
Well, there was Ida, and I think that may be where you're confusing yourself. Yeah, but it's important for us to, think about those contributions if we have the capacity to make them. You can volunteer with the Red Cross to serve our neighbors here. The Red Cross is responding to home fires every day here in New Jersey, here in Hudson County. We have a shelter operating right now in Passaic because there was an apartment fire this morning. So it doesn't need to be in Florida to support your neighbors and to support the American Red Cross as a volunteer. We also provide 40% of the nation's blood product supply. So rolling up your sleeve, rolling up your sleeve and donating blood is a great way to participate and support, our neighbors who are in need. So there are plenty of ways to give back and to think about how you can impact positively, right, when we're watching this and we don't know what to do.
Right now what they can do is $5 or $10. That will go a long way.
Certainly will.
That's some food, that's some clothes, that's medicine, whatever is needed.
Yeah,
down
water,
there.
sure.
Yeah, that's I wouldn't mind when these crews come back to interview a few of them, so
that'd be
you
great.
can really get the stories from the people with the feet on the ground.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's inspiring.
And the ground is contaminated. There's soil and cars are in there. And we spoke before, alligators. There's crocodiles and alligators down there.
Yeah,
not like
be
Jersey.
Careful. No. I mean, that's the truth, right? So anytime there's flooding, and by the way, we have a great site, redcross.org/getpreparednj is full of great tips for us here in New Jersey on how to stay safe. Because certainly we know that flash flooding can occur and other things even outside of a hurricane.
You got videos for that? If you're not, you should come in here and knock out a couple.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
Yeah,
I think it's important for all of us to have a safe household and to know some of those dangers that could be there and to know what to do. The other thing I'll offer your audience is that you can download an app. It's called the Emergency app. So you can search American Red Cross in the App Store or your marketplace, and it's for free. It's a great app that will give you wonderful alerts to keep you and your family safe. You can follow other locations around the country. So if you have kids in college or parents who live outside of the area, you can follow their location and get a lot of great preparedness tips in addition to those alerts.
Good job.
So there's some things you can do today. Download an app, and we appreciate so much everything.
Donate $5, $10. Do that today.
Thank you.
We cover everything?
I think so.
All
Yeah.
right.
Appreciate it.
Kimberly Getz?
You got
Not
it.
related to Bernie Getz,
No.
not related. American Red Cross, please, if you can, $5, $10. We'll be right back.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Hudson Media Group Hurricane Ian Fundraiser. I'm Fernando Uribe, the host of Talking Politics here with the Hudson Media Group. And at this time, it's great to have with me former State Senate President Steve Sweeney. Senator, how are you?
Good, Pat. How are you doing?
It's Senator, it's Fernando Uribe. Yep, good to see you. How are you, Senator? Are you with us here?
I'm doing good.
Good.
Something's wrong with my audio, though.
All right. Well, it's good to have you on here, Senator. And certainly, Hurricane Ian has ravaged so many people, and we're happy to be doing this event here in cooperation with the American Red Cross. It sort of takes us back 10 years ago when Hurricane Sandy ravaged South Jersey and the Jersey Shore. What were some of your thoughts when sort of living through that difficult time?
Well, I didn't hear you, Pat. I'm sorry.
Senator, no, it's Fernando.
I'm having
Senator.
problems
It's not
with
Pat.
this audio.
It's not Pat O'Melia, Senator. Do you hear me, Senator?
Barely.
Okay. Not sure if it's, is it a volume issue on our end, or do you have to turn up the volume on your end, Senator?
I'm maxed out volume-wise.
Okay, I hear you perfectly, Senator.
Okay.
Do you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Okay. So, Senator, again, welcome back here. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us here on the Hudson Media Group, it's great to be here in cooperation with the American Red Cross and raise funds tonight to help everyone that was ravaged during Hurricane Ian. Again, joining us here is former State Senate President Steve Sweeney, all the way from South Jersey. Senator, it's been 10 years. We lived through Sandy. We can only imagine what people in Puerto Rico and Florida collectively have been going through. What are some of your recollections from Sandy? It's crazy. It's almost 10 years already.
It's shocking. It's been 10 years, and I've seen things. And what I saw during Hurricane Sandy, I've never seen anywhere in my life, and it'll never leave me. The devastation that took place, just the sheer force of the storm. To see trash piled up outside homes that were thrown across streets. It was just, my heart goes out to the people in Puerto Rico and Florida for what they're dealing with right now, because I know what we dealt with 10 years ago.
Senator, when we think about infrastructure, that's the first thing that comes to mind when we think about hurricane relief and what happens in coastal areas, right? So here in New Jersey is no different. During your time in State Senate, what were some of the more frustrating dynamics about working with legislators in addressing infrastructure along the coastlines? And more importantly, what's the best sort of, not academic solution, but most pragmatic solution to helping combat this?
Well, I think everyone worked together well, but the problem was it just took too long. The process was just way too long, and people were suffering, and we couldn't get them the help as quickly as they needed. And I remember that, and again, to this day, there's still some people struggling.
It's amazing, 10 years, it really feels like yesterday. I mean, we think about, it was right during Halloween weekend, beginning of November, whether it was power outages, homes destroyed along the Jersey Shore, or even up here in Hudson County, being without power for more than a week. I can't even imagine what it was like for residents in Central and South Jersey collectively. For constituents that you had that were reaching out to you, what were some of the more heartbreaking stories you had to deal with in your capacity working in the legislature?
Well, obviously, the storm Sandy really exposed the state for not really being ready or prepared. We weren't energy hardened enough to ensure that the power would either stay on or come back quickly. So we were exposed to really what we were weak. We weren't ready. We were nowhere ready for the storms. Substations were put in places that flooded. There was a lot of mistakes that Sandy exposed that we had to work to fix.
Senator, looking back, obviously, I know you had at the time in your capacity in the state Senate, I think it's fair to say you had a good working relationship with then Governor Chris Christie. Looking back, I mean, not to be revisionist or sort of like that Monday morning quarterback scenario, but are there things that maybe the governor's office, along with the legislature, should have done better or ultimately just been more expedient about?
I think during tragedies, Pat, sometimes you see the best of people. They come together, they work together. The partisanship goes away. So, it's easy. It's obviously you can criticize because it wasn't a perfect response, and we had a lot of work to do and things that we really didn't know what we were doing. Just the fact that we didn't even know where all the gas stations were in the state. We didn't have any map to, where we could help people get fueled up. So that storm really exposed a lot of vulnerability, but it really brought out the best in everyone because there wasn't any Republicans or Democrats at that point. It was just, we were all New Jerseyans, Jersey strong, working to get back.
Senator, one of the more defining aspects of your legacy in the state Senate was really trying to get a consolidation of municipalities and a consolidation of services. And I think it's fair to say that that was a good idea on face value and also on paper in terms of reducing costs. We know there's just excessive spending that's still a problem in Trenton. And, looking back on it, is that one of the prouder accomplishments you've had in the state Senate?
It's something I'm proud of, Pat, because we finally have people talking about shared services and consolidation all throughout the state. 25 years ago, that was a dirty word. Now people are looking for ways to save money and try to reduce costs. So, those are tough fights, and nothing moves quickly in the state, really, or in government. But at least we were able to get some things done.
Senator, I think it would be, irresponsible of me not to ask as a journalist, but certainly I'm sure that the whispers are up and about. 2023 will be here before we know it, and 2025 will be here before we know it. I know you've remained a very visible player in New Jersey politics. Is there something maybe you want to share with us, or what does the outlook look for you in 2023? Are you looking to run again to regain your state Senate seat, or are you looking at a bigger office, for example, in 2025?
Listen, there's a lot of options in front of me, and I have to explore whatever I think is the best. I enjoyed my time in the Senate. I enjoyed working with my colleagues. In fact, I miss a lot of them. So is the Senate run a possibility? Maybe. In the future, who knows if the gubernatorial possibilities are run. Those decisions will be made in the future when they're supposed to. Right now, we got to focus on this year's election. Very important election this year, and we don't want to lose any of our seats as Democrats.
Senator, I think you've always been viewed as a more pragmatic Democrat, not some sort of the far left Democrats that have become pervasive in the party. I think even you yourself have, sort of openly admitted that that's not a good look for the party. And again, you are a proud Democrat. Do you foresee that being a problem in future elections, not just congressionally in New Jersey, but even coming up in 2024?
I don't think so. I mean, like myself, we let a lot of things that I think were positive for people, like paid family leave, minimum wage, paid sick leave, really looked after working people. And I don't think that's anybody that thinks there are bad ideas. I beg to differ. I think looking out for working people is important. And, as the elections come, look, the next presidential election comes, but right now the next election is our congressional races and our local races, and they're important.
Well, again, Senator, we appreciate your candor, and we do appreciate your time here today. Ladies and gentlemen, he is former State Senate President Steve Sweeney. Join us here this evening during the Hudson Media Group Hurricane Ian fundraiser on behalf of the American Red Cross. Senator, thank you for your time. Take care.
Thanks for doing this, Pat. Be well.
All right. Take care, Senator.
Hi, I'm John Heinis from Hudson County View, and I'm here at Hudson Media Group for the Hurricane Ian Relief event. And today, I'm actually having the pleasure to be joined by former Governor Jim McGreevey. Gov, great to see you
Yeah,
again.
good to be with you.
So,
I just want to know, is Pat treating you right?
he's okay for now.
All right, it's just, he has good weeks and bad weeks. I just want to make sure.
It's a good week so far. Thanks for asking.
Good.
So, listen, I mean, on a serious note, I mean, obviously we have to talk about the hurricane, obviously some of the worst devastation from a natural disaster we've seen in quite a while. I don't even want to put a number on it, but,
The numbers are staggering.
Yeah.
So $50 billion, and just the numbers are almost incomprehensible. It's the loss of life, the devastation of homes, infrastructure. So it's just, I just want to say thank you to you and to Fernando and to Pat for doing this, because I know Pat's got a long history of commitment to the Red Cross, and I've been involved with the Red Cross in my hometown of Woodbridge, and I just wanted to say thank you to Pat because of his commitment, and I just think this is great.
Yeah, well, thanks again for joining us, and great to have you. So, I mean, you obviously saw this a little bit, to a much lesser degree in Hurricane Sandy about a decade ago.
Sure.
So, what was that like from your point of view?
Sandy was, the hard thing about Sandy is, and I think Governor Christie showed great leadership in getting things open again, but one of the hard things about Christie was, we were all on the beach. We were all so close to the edge of the beach. The water comes in, does incalculable damage. And the real hard point is do you rebuild, and do you rebuild at the same place? I remember going down to New Orleans for a church visit, church mission, whatever, in the aftermath of the devastation in New Orleans. And I remember in a small community meeting with the local priest and the fire chief and OEM, and basically OEM was saying, this is going to happen again. I mean, you can strengthen the levees, you can put in the right hydraulics, but looking long term, we should make a decision not to rebuild in certain areas in New Orleans because of the positioning of the land, the positioning of the dikes. And so it was a hard thing. Part of the reality is when you're looking at Jersey and the Jersey Shore, looking at Long Beach Island, Barrier Island, I mean, the tough decisions as to, even if you build up, what are the proximate results that there's going to be another 100-year storm in 15 years. And I think that's part of the hard decision. I know that New Orleans faced, and I mean, candidly, they didn't do it as well as the planners would have wanted to, and I still think it's a challenge in New Jersey. The inevitability of storms, and what does that mean for infrastructure, and what does that mean for cost, and what does it mean for businesses and families? I mean, they can't get insurance, flood insurance, because of the plane they're in or because of the proximity to the ocean. So those are really difficult questions, and I believe in obviously local self-determination, local mayors, but at some point in time, when the injury is so devastating, should the state be more involved in saying, this portion should be off limits?
Yeah, so that's a good segue, Gov, because I also, on that point, I wanted to talk about both at the local, the municipal level, and the state level, we're seeing a lot more officials talk about green infrastructure and climate change. So what do you think about Governor Murphy and his administration in addressing this issue?
I think, this is I think Governor Murphy has been extraordinary on green infrastructure. And, so whether you're conservative or you're liberal, whether you're Democrat or Republican, you should want New Jersey to be as competitive as it possibly can be in the green economy, if only to position us well in terms of energy resources, in terms of our competitiveness. And the reality is the job creation that will occur, particularly in South Jersey. Senator Sweeney was just speaking, is that will provide substantial new jobs in terms of technology, in terms of with the trade unions and energy independence. So I think those investments are prudent investments. And obviously our economy is profoundly different than a place like Pennsylvania or Ohio or West Virginia that's more traditionally coal related. I think, New Jersey's already embarked upon this change, and I think considering our geographic location, proximity to wind, proximity to the ocean, it's only in our interest to be on that cutting edge, John.
Yeah, okay. So I also wanted to give you a moment today to talk about the passing of your friend, another former governor, Jim Florio. May he rest in peace, of course. So rather than just, talk about all the things that we've seen in the paper and stuff, I wanted to actually ask you, like, what's a personal story that you could share that you guys...
Well, my favorite, and I think I've told this to Pat, John, my favorite story is, I guess it was 1989, and I was running for assembly, and I think that was the first time I was running for the General Assembly, and I'm all excited. And Governor Florio, then Congressman Florio says, well, I'll come into the Garden State Parkway office, which was then right off of the Garden State Parkway in Woodbridge. And, I'll do a press hit there.
Nice.
And so, yeah, that's what I thought, John, nice. So he comes in and we just talk about infrastructure or whatever we talk about. And so the next day I run down, I go to the local sub shop to grab my Star Ledger, and on the front cover it says Congressman Jim Florio, an unidentified man. And I said, that's it. Unidentified. The truth is, John, I just saw the governor like literally 2 weeks before he passed away.
Wow.
I drove down to his house. I just, out of emotional respect and admiration and deference, here's a guy who grew up hard, Brooklyn, Navy boxer. I don't know if you remember literally, he had one of his cheeks busted.
Yeah.
As a Navy boxer, served this nation, went to law school at night. And he was ahead of his time, and he wasn't, Governor Florio, I remember, down there voting, and we had the state Supreme Court was about to mandate a greater investment, particularly on pre-kindergarten education, and all the advisors say, don't jump in. And Governor Florio said, look, I'm down here to do the right thing. I don't give a darn. So, he went into these things. Whether it's assault weapons, whether it was school funding, whether you liked him or didn't like him, you knew he was doing what he thought in his heart and soul was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And so that's, to me, is like, that's as much as you can get.
Sure.
But we were at some local Italian restaurant. He had his walker. I literally, John, I turned my back for 30 seconds and he's flying. And I'm like, whoa, Guff. I'm like literally not, almost running to keep pace with him. But he was as sharp as a tack, talking about the country, talking about service, talking about the job trainings and the economy and jobs. So I just think I think he was the real deal. He was
Got it.
that World War II generation, no BS, straight shooter, but he was always a gentleman.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, Gov, I also wanted to talk about Jersey City Employment Training Program. Obviously, second chances reentry are near and dear to your heart. And today was actually the last day. So, I'm sure you have some feelings on that.
Yeah, it's just, John, it's sad. I think we did some really good things there. And I think we sort of positioned people understood that people come back from prison, from county jail, from addiction treatment. I think that's hard enough, and we provided them with identification. We linked people to housing. We linked people to job training. Medical, we worked with the local federally qualified health center, Metropolitan on Garfield Avenue, Jersey City Medical Center. So we try to provide for people coming back and understanding that's part of my mission is, the old spiritual, we fall down, but we get up. And so it's like life moves on, and yeah.
Got it. All right. Now, look, I know you did want to talk politics, but I got to throw one, and you take it how you will. What do you think about the prospect of Governor Murphy for president and Mayor Fulop for governor?
Well, one, I try not to engage in prognostications. I just think this is a difficult time in the nation. I think, by the way, Governor Murphy has, in terms of New Jersey, on educational front, on the economy front, we just talked about environment. There are a lot of good things on criminal justice. But I think that the political calculus is so much different when I was there. Bluntly, you just worked your backside off and you built relationships. I think social media plays so much more of a significant role than it did when I was there. I mean, the print media was more important. The necessity of your relationships, the necessity of your county lines, your county organizations was so much more important. So I think that's changed. It's become more personality driven. So I would think that right now it's very early in the game. I mean, the reality is, I was just talking to Patrick, and we were just talking about what happens in U.S. Senate seats in terms of Georgia, in terms of Pennsylvania, in terms of Arizona. So I think those questions, I mean, God willing, we'll have a new congressman here in Jersey City, Hudson County, Rob Menendez, who's a bright young guy. So I'm really excited about that. But I think in terms of presidential politics or particularly gubernatorial politics, it's relatively early in the game.
All right, fair enough. Gov, always a pleasure. Thanks
No,
for coming in.
can I just say something about the reason why this is so important?
Sure.
And I just really want to say thank you to Patrick and to you, John, and Fernando, is that, you know, after Sandy, and you see the devastation, and you see the inability, particularly for people who can't get insurance, the devastation and literally the inability to get the most basic provisions in your life is so crushing. And so I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for putting this together, because these are people who literally have nothing. And I think we don't understand that. I mean, if you're blessed to have insurance and you're blessed to have some means of rebuilding your life, but to go through something like this hurricane, these folks have nothing. And I just want to, from my heart, say thank you for your decency and integrity, and Pat's, and even Fernando's. But no,
Thank you.
It was a dear friend, so thanks so much.
Thanks very much, Gov. We appreciate your participation. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll be right back.
Pat O'Melia here. We have the ongoing Hurricane Ian relief fundraiser here in cooperation with the American Red Cross. I never get it right. I say Ian, I say Ian. Now my guest is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Jersey City Medical Center, and he's an Executive Vice President with RWJ Barnabas. Michael, come on in. There he is.
Thanks, Pat.
Michael, how's the
Appreciate you
Chiefs
having
doing?
me on.
How's your
Chiefs are
diehard Chief
doing,
fan here?
Okay. Yeah, Chiefs are doing
Yeah,
okay
yeah.
this season. Tough game coming up this week.
I'm taking Buffalo. You guys couldn't stop the Raiders. I'm going with Buffalo this week. I think you really miss Hill. But you did. But Kelsey, what do you set a record for tight ends last week? You had like, what do you have, 10 touchdowns last week?
For 4 touchdowns and the shortest yardage ever to get 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, what do you have, like 28 yards total in 4 touchdowns?
Yeah, he was under 30 yards, and next one was about 100. So that record is probably going to stand for a while.
No, that's the Chiefs. Pat Mahomes, he can make a lot of magic happen, except against the Raiders. Do you remember when Marty Schottenheimer was the head coach of the Chiefs? He used to say, it's Raider week, it's Raider week, it's Raider week. Marty, that was the game of the year. Every time the Raiders were coming to KC. I think Reed's got to do the same thing. I couldn't believe you guys couldn't stop the Raiders. And I was given 5.5. So,
It's the NFL. Every game counts, Pat.
You're from Missouri, right?
From actually Kansas side of Kansas City, yes.
You get many hurricanes there?
Not too many. Tornadoes, yes, but not
Tornadoes.
hurricanes.
Were you up here when Superstorm Sandy hit?
I was here working in a hospital in New York City. So I lived in New Jersey, worked in New York City, so I lived through Sandy, and I worked in a hospital through Sandy. That's correct.
Did you ever see anything like that before, coming from Kansas City?
No, that was definitely a test. That was definitely unique. And it was 2, 3, 4 days of hard work managing a true emergency, trying to make sure that the healthcare services that every community needs was still covered.
Well, the Jersey City Medical Center was hit hard. It was flooded out, at least 2 feet of water in there. And fortunately, by design, whether it was by design or dumb luck, they put the generators up on, what is it, the second or third floor? And that saved
Yes.
the day.
So it saved the day. It certainly gave us some lasting damage here at the medical center. As you know, at that time, the emergency room was knocked out. The number of services were knocked out. The Department of Health commissioner came out. There was a tent, deployed mobile tent for emergency services for the community. So a lot of things got done. A lot of things worked. A lot of things were damaged by Sandy. Certainly, for example, the electrical system was completely damaged by Sandy, and we still just recently, in fact, we're replacing some components of that from that time as they fail due to rust and damage. So really was meaningful to this community, but Jersey City Medical Center kept on functioning. And again, as you said, the generators kept on working. We have, even now, we have 7+ days worth of standalone power. And we don't have just one backup generator, we have two. And we replaced both of them in the last 3 years to make sure that they're modern and they really high efficiency generators to make sure that there's no interruption in service.
Well, fortunately, whoever planned out the JC Medical Center with those generators, if I'm not mistaken, that was the only hospital that was operating immediately after Sandy, and at least for the next 3 or 4 days. The rest of them, they got hit by the floods. They got hit with the flood waters and the wind. Now, with all that behind the Jersey City Medical Center, what are you doing to prepare that you don't get caught like that again?
It's really a great question. And Jersey City Medical Center, as you know, is unique in this community. It is a trauma center. It's the only trauma center for Hudson County, for Jersey City. So we do have accountability to 700,000-800,000 people. So we must stay open no matter what happens. And certainly we have the only really advanced open heart surgery in the area. We have the only level 3 NICU in the area. So again, we're an anchor of healthcare for the community, and we must continue to function no matter what. We talked a little bit about those backup generators. The truly state of the art just got replaced, can function for 7+ days depending on fuel, and we have plenty of fuel. We certainly have also food supplies on hand to go on for days. But post Sandy, on top of everything else, we also have an ongoing FEMA project to put a wall around the medical center that in parts of the medical center will go up if we need to raise it for the storm. It's a $40 million project. It'll take another year and a half to complete fully. It's up in some parts of the medical center, but this wall that we'll be able to raise during the storm will ensure that there's no penetration of water of any kind into the medical center. So all components, MRIs and CAT scans and emergency room will all function no matter how high the water levels get. It's really an amazing technology, amazing investment, and truly, again, $40 million coming to the city to make sure that healthcare is present for all who need it. In addition to that, what just happened really about 2 months ago is that we opened our brand new emergency room and our brand new operating rooms. It's a new building attached to the medical center, and this new addition, which was funded by RWJ Barnabas Health, it's a huge investment that health system makes in this community. It's over $100 million, and this building already is fully waterproof, hurricane-proof. So as we have this FEMA project ongoing, building a wall around the rest of the medical center, the key service component during the emergency, again, our brand new emergency room that, by the way, has 2 separate entrances, one for adults, one for pediatrics. Really the first time Hudson County has a separate pediatric emergency room. But this brand new addition, really the gem of healthcare for Hudson County, is already fully proof against hurricanes. So really an important component of our preparedness.
And
One
we'll
of the
get a
things
chance.
that
We'll come down and get some footage of your wall and the new emergency room. You got to take the
Absolutely.
precautions, especially you're really pretty much right on the Hudson River there. You can take a few
Yeah.
steps out, you can touch the Statue of Liberty. So you got to take every precaution possible. One
Yeah,
other
and-
thing I need you to do. You have the program now for people who are food challenged that the medical center is involved in. Should probably
It's
send
beyond that,
somebody up here
truly.
to the studio to do
Yeah.
some PSAs on that, because that's really important these days. And as the inflation gets worse, it'll be even more important. So,
Yeah, we're
now
expanding that program, Pat. It's a good program. You should definitely learn more about it. We're willing to do an on-site presentation and show you how it works. It's a food pharmacy, so pharmacy with an F. And it's not just for the folks who are food challenged. It's also a component of living healthy. We educate folks how to eat right. We have a licensed dietitian actually working this food pharmacy for us. So we teach folks what to eat, how to eat, and of course also, again, as you said, if they have challenges obtaining healthy foods, we provide those. It's just one of many services we have in the community that goes well beyond high tech. We do have a commitment to make sure this community is healthy.
well, we'll make a point to come down here and get some footage of that. Now, how long you been living in Jersey now?
For 27 years, I think.
When is the point you become a Jet or a Giant fan? When is that? The 30th year, 28th year? When do you give up on the Chiefs?
I thought those were New York teams, Pat. Are you saying they're New Jersey teams?
Well, they play here in Jersey. You wouldn't know it, but they don't say the New Jersey Giants and New Jersey Jets. They're the New York. All right, we're out of time there, sir. I'll call you during the
Thank you.
week. We'll make an appointment to
Yeah.
get some footage, and I'll talk to you later. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Take care.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Hudson Media Group Hurricane Ian Fundraiser. I'm Fernando Uribe, the host of Talking Politics, right here with Hudson Media Group and everyone's favorite conservative here in Hudson County. And it's my pleasure to welcome here tonight the congressional candidate for the House of Representatives right here in CD8 in Hudson County, my good friend, Robert Menendez Jr. How are you, man?
Good to be on with you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. So, Robert, when we think about the American Red Cross and everything that they're doing during, let's say, disasters like Hurricane Ian, it sort of makes me think back to 10 years ago with Hurricane Sandy. And it seems like it's 10 years ago, but it really is still fresh on my mind, like a lot of other people. What were some of your thoughts and memories from 10 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, you saw how one storm could dramatically impact a community, how it could change the landscape for families, for not just that one moment in time, but for years to come. As you know, people in New Jersey are still trying to recover from Hurricane Sandy, from Superstorm Sandy. So it's an important reminder that no matter where these storms happen in our country, we have to unite together. We have to respond as one country, put our politics aside, and make sure that we're helping our fellow country people overcome the challenges that they're facing because of this rise in incidents that we're seeing the last couple of years.
It's funny you mentioned that about there were no politics back in 2012. It wasn't Republicans or Dems, blue or red. It was about, hey, let's help our fellow New Jerseyans out. And the American Red Cross was instrumental in getting that message out really during that time period. I mean, now you're running for a seat in the House of Representatives. And, for you, I know obviously Hudson County raised, going to law school, now running for CD8. I mean, take us through like the mindset of, you grew up very humble beginnings, right? You're very pragmatic like your dad as a Democrat, and you're running in a district that's heavily blue. So there's as I've called it on my show, you're a Sherwin on November 8th. I know you're going to take the high road and sort of be classy about it, but take us through really what this campaign's been about for you.
Yeah, well, one is, we're squarely focused on November and doing what we have to do to position ourselves well to have the result that we want to have there. We had a great result in the primary because, we worked hard at it every single day. This is an important election for folks. It's an important election for me when you look at the world that we're inheriting right now, the world that we're occupying right now, the challenges that we're facing domestically, challenges that we're facing abroad. There are folks who live in the 8th District who, these are tough times. And I think what's important now is for anyone seeking office or currently in office, is to make sure they deliver results for those families. And so that's what I'm keenly focused on, is listening, understanding what the challenges are, and then making sure that we do what we need to do in November. Come January, when we can represent this great district, we're creating real tangible solutions for those families that solve the problems that they are telling us they are facing each and every day. That's what this election has been about since day one. That's what it will continue to be. And we're going to make sure that we meet this moment and that we work together to create solutions for the challenges folks are facing.
Robert, I mean, as you're running, obviously you're going to be succeeding Albio Sierras, who has been a political icon in Hudson County, growing up in West New York, being elected to the State Assembly, and then obviously to the U.S. House of Representatives. What's the legacy for you when you think about Albio Sierras and his time in the House?
Yeah, so Albio's been a great public servant, being in the West New York public school system, being a mayor, speaker of our state assembly, and 16 years in the House of Representatives, where he's done a lot for our infrastructure. He sits on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, so I know that being part of that committee when we passed, this Congress passed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, I think for him it was a really monumental moment and achievement. And it's something that he can be extremely proud of, because a lot of those dollars are already coming back to the 8th Congressional District and on a lot of important projects that will benefit the county, the district, the region for years to come.
I know that running, obviously, as a Democrat in Hudson County and CDA is very different than in other congressional districts in New Jersey, where some Democrats are very vulnerable. You're not. Next door in Bergen County, Josh Geiheimer isn't vulnerable either. What's the most important premise for you during this campaign? We know nationally what the message is, right? The economy, inflation, maybe crime. But for you specifically in CDA, what are the things that you really want to tackle, after getting elected?
So listen, I think anybody running in this environment knows that the economic issues facing families are real. And I think that we have to lean into those challenges. I think Democrats have over the last 2 years, especially at the beginning of this session, when they ensured that people were staying in their homes. When you were looking down the economic challenges that were presented by COVID, they made sure people stayed in their homes. They made sure people remained employed. They ensured that small businesses stayed open. And they took action in a moment when Americans needed their government to take action. But there's still a lot of work that remains. For a lot of families in the district, there's this sense that even those families that are making ends meet aren't in a position to get ahead. And so I think while we've stabilized the situation and we still have a lot of challenges ahead of us, we need to continue to think about how we can alleviate those economic pressures for working families in the district. That's top of mind for people on a daily basis. But the reversal of Roe is a significant issue for a lot of folks, and women's reproductive choice, that's on the ballot as well. So there's a lot of issues, a lot of challenges. I think Democrats have done a good job tackling some of those challenges, laying the foundation for what moving forward looks like, and still more work to do. And I think Democrats have earned the right and opportunity to do that work for another 2 years.
Rob, obviously you're a rising star in the Democratic Party, but I have to give some props here. Your sister Alicia seems to be a rising star also in media. Is not a sibling rivalry, but how often do you talk with her and get pointers from her about, again, during the campaign, about presentation, about the optics? Do you have those conversations with her about, hey, sis, maybe you should do this on your show? Is there that sort of rapport between you and your sister?
My sister's incredible. She does an incredible job. She always has from the time we were kids in her different pursuits. I would not be so bold to give her any advice on what she should do or not do. She's incredible. I love watching her on American Voices, which is a show that she hosts on MSNBC. And really when we are able to connect, she has an incredibly busy schedule. When we're able to connect, it's really about her kids, my nieces, my kids, her niece and nephew. And we really just sort of are able to connect about family things, and that's what we really focus on. So it's always great when we can all get together and enjoy our time together.
Robert, historically during the midterms, the opposing party tends to win the House. It's very possible Republicans can win maybe a slim majority. What's the mindset for you in the sense, when you take office in January, how amicable are you going to be able to work with your Republican colleagues? Again, whether it's the economy, whether it's the border situation, whether it is just inflation. How confident do you feel you can work across the aisle and get things done in Washington as a member of the House of Representatives?
Yeah, so one, just, again, I like being consistent, so we're focused on November.
Yeah.
Should we get the result we want in November and have the opportunity to serve this incredible district? One, in terms of, you talked about historical precedent, right?
Yeah.
And I know I'm a political science major and I love the history of elections. But right now, when you think about all the challenges that we've seen, the 4 years of Trump, right? There's so many things that when you look at historical trends, I think they're out the door. And we shouldn't feel limited by what historical trends would be modeling and predicting will happen in this midterm. I think we've seen a lot of disruption in our politics, in our country the last couple of years. I think we should have an opportunity where that benefits our country, and we see Democrats break that trend and deliver a resounding win in November. But to your question and the point of what you're asking about working in a bipartisan way, I am hopeful that Democrats keep the House and we're able to continue the important work. If Democrats were to lose the House and Republicans were to take control, I remain hopeful that they will put forth proposals that will benefit working families throughout this country. If the legislative burden is on the folks in the majority, so I hope that they are putting forth proposals that will benefit families, improve the situations for families, and if they do, I am happy to engage in that conversation. I hope that if they are in the majority, they don't use that opportunity with all the struggles that Americans are facing to do senseless things like hearings and looking to just create political discourse around things that won't improve people's lives. That is all I care about. That is all I hope everyone running for office right now cares about, because people are facing a lot of challenges. If Republicans or Democrats, independents, if anyone's willing to meet those challenges, I am willing to engage in that conversation. I am willing to work alongside them, and I'd be happy to be part of it if it delivers change for people in the 8th Congressional District.
Rob, one last thing here, real quick. We're both Cuban. Your favorite dish?
So it generally is churrasco.
Okay.
Right? But we're ordering more because we have 2 young kids.
Sure.
So I've been ordering vaca frita more often. So with white rice, black beans, yuca, extra garlic, some tostones. That's the I can eat all day. We should actually do. I've been saying this for Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yes.
I didn't get a chance because we've been campaigning, but I wanted to do a road show through the 8th District where we go to all of these Hispanic-owned businesses, restaurants. I'll probably gain 15, 20 pounds.
Let's do a food tasting together. Can we do that?
There you go.
All right, good stuff. Folks, he's Robert Menendez Jr. running right here in CD8. Join us here on the Hurricane Ian fundraiser on behalf of the American Red Cross here, hosted by the Hudson Media Group. We'll be right back with more guests and more fundraising for the American Red Cross to benefit victims of Hurricane Ian. We'll be right back.
We're back. Pat O'Melia, Hurricane Ian relief fundraiser is still continuing. You just seen, what was that, Rob Menendez and Fernando Uribe. Now the commissioner from the Mile Square City of Hoboken and parts of Jersey City.
Right. Don't
parts
forget
of
my
Jersey,
Jersey
downtown
City
Jersey City.
background, that's right.
The host
Uptown
of
Heights,
Sick
too.
at Night, Dick Romano.
Glad to see him be here with you, Pat, for such a great cause.
Did you have a Twinkie? No problem with the Twinkies today?
No Twinkies today.
No.
They're stale. So, but
Oh,
good
who the
thing-
hell complains about Twinkies? When the end of the world comes, there'll be roaches and they'll be feeding on Twinkies. Those two things will last.
Well, more importantly, you had all rock stars here. You
Oh,
had
no, yeah.
Fernando Uribe. You had John Heinis.
Yep, yeah,
the
they're
new
still here.
Eyewitness
They're still
News.
here.
You
They'll
got
be
Governor
back.
McGreevey.
Yeah.
Congressman to be Menendez.
Jimmy Mack, you missed Steve Sweeney. Phillip's
Listen,
Phillip's in the wings
You
somewhere.
got two great guys here in Fernando and John Heinis, who give so much to this community. And you know what? That's a pleasure to be around them. Jim McGreevey with his reentry. Rob Menendez is going to be a great congressman. You can't ask for a better group.
Yeah, we're raising money here for the American Red Cross for the people in Florida. Again, $5, $10, whatever you can. You were in Hoboken. You're on the police force when Sandy hit.
Yes,
And
yeah.
that was the worst flooding you ever had. And Hoboken floods normally by
but
ShopRite,
I'll
but
tell
this
you,
was
right by the Hudson. I live on
Different flood.
River Street, and the Hudson River actually came. I never seen that in my life. It was scary. Luckily, with a high point, but it was rolling over onto Sinatra Drive. It was something that I've never seen in my life, and it was scary. And on the other end, I remember riding with a brigadier general who did Katrina in Louisiana. He was in charge. He was a one-star. I rode with him in a 3 1/4 Deuce Army truck. We went down to survey the housing authority area and the flooding of the public service station, which was unheard of, and we had to figure out a way to get the water out, which we did because there was a trough. Obviously, the then Mayor Dawn Zimmer, not being from Hoboken, she didn't know that. But we also, she was being interviewed by Anderson Cooper, and I remember being in the room. We took the map off the wall with Director Took, who was the public safety director at the time, and the Office of Emergency Management. And we actually figured out the way to get that water to flow into a trough that's behind, it's Hoboken and Jersey City, that flowed when it was all marshland back there.
A lot of people don't realize Hoboken was one time a working piers.
Yeah.
And the Hudson River came up into Hoboken, over the banks of the Hudson
both
River in
ends,
Hoboken.
I mean, I go to St. Lawrence Church, Weehawken, and that was devastated. So it was amazing that on both ends how that came to be. And obviously those suffering from, I was in Florida during Katrina. We got stuck down there. And in my timeshare, and it was all electricity, nothing. The water came right on A1A. So that was another experience. You couldn't get out. But with Hurricane Ian, again, the poor victims, we have to help them, those in Florida, in Puerto Rico, in the Dominican Republic. So many people suffered devastation. My cousin's home in Florida, I was just talking to him. He had tremendous damage, and he was in Jupiter, which usually the East Coast doesn't get hit as hard. Well, I'm sorry, the West Coast got hit hard this time too.
Well, it was Fort Myers, Naples, Orlando, Tampa Bay.
Cuba too.
Cuba. I didn't hear anything on the with
Oh
the
yeah,
stats
it was
for
on
Cuba.
TV, and a good friend of mine, she's a wonderful person. She grew up in Cuba, and she's so appreciative of what she has here. She's a Yaida. She was at Capital One Bank, and now she was at BCB. She went back to Capital One. She got a big job. She says, Anthony, I'm so happy to appreciate what I have here. And she watched on Cuba when it was on TV, and she was crying to see the devastation even in Cuba.
Well, I remember one of the lasting images of this Superstorm Sandy was by the Chadboard building where they had all the taxi cabs parked, and the water, all you seen was the roofs of the taxis. And that's like 4 feet of water.
Oh.
And one other lasting memory, Dave Roberts, the former mayor, friend of yours,
Yeah.
his house was sitting in the middle of a lake.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was gone. The whole
it was
house
gone.
was
Yep.
gone.
The whole,
On
it was
West,
just,
West Point Island, I
yep.
think that is, right? That's where he
it
was.
sat out there for, it was
There was
flooded
nothing
there
left.
for months, and
And it
his
was a
house was there.
beautiful home. Yeah, so many people suffered, and especially those that don't have the ability to rehabilitate or start over again so easily. Those are the ones that you have to feel the most for. And obviously those people that are in Florida and the countries that were hit with this devastating hurricane, we need to help them. And the American Red Cross does a great job doing that.
Well, that's why we work in conjunction with them here, in cooperation with them, because they're the ones, they got the feet on the ground there. and
Yeah,
they're
we work
immediate.
with them with the heart program, with the Joyce, I forgot her last, Joyce Gilman, I think it is. She's big with the American Red Cross. We have a wonderful relationship with her through the county and the city.
So everything good in Hoboken? No complaints? Outside of Twinkies? You know, that's all good with you?
You know, I was just talking out there before with Governor McGreevey, and people seem to have we have to get back to respecting one another and helping one another, and you know, it's tragic.
This is Mayor Phillips having an issue here. See what you got there and try to talk to Mayor Phillips. Some firewall issue with getting the mayor here. One of the things I want you to talk about, when Frank Sinatra, the son of Hoboken, when he would come into Hoboken at night to visit somebody at St. Mary's.
All right, here's where we visited.
Who was the one that got the call?
He had two Irish godfathers. One was Frank Garrick, and the other one was Jerry Malloy. And his mother was very politically astute at that time. The Irish were in power under McFeely in Hoboken and Hagen, Jersey City. So to ensure, you know, the success of her as a committee person, they were his two godfathers. And when he came to New York, always and played either at Carnegie Hall or other venues, he would always eat at Patsy's. And then he would roll into town periodically in his Cadillac, which had My Way plates. And he would, pass where he was born, he'd stop at the hospital, and he would take care of all the nurses, the doctors that were on, just so he can quietly and anonymously go see either Mr. Garrick or Mr. Malloy as they had aged. He never forgot that. And a lot of people don't understand. I was on the bodyguard detail twice. When he came with President Reagan in '84, my father was the acting chief. And in '85, when he received the honorary degree from Stevens. And the history going back of why he, for a while, disconnected from Hoboken is, you know, there's so many different stories out there, but my uncle, my mother's brother, I went to school with him, and the few times that my mother and my father always went to his concerts, as long as you laid back and didn't bother, he didn't mind, but when they started yelling, "Oh, we're from Hoboken, don't you remember us?" You know, he didn't like that, and when they threw tomatoes at him the one time when he came back, that's why for 20 years or 30 years, whatever it was, he didn't come back.
Return.
Right, but he did a lot. For St. Mary's Hospital, at that time was St. Mary's, for Stevens University, he donated a lot of money anonymously, you know, and so, I mean, listen, there's, you know, everybody has two stories about him, and obviously he's one of the greatest entertainers of the century, but also at the same time, like any of us human beings, he has his faults.
So there a call that goes into the Hoboken PD that the Cadillac with My Ways at the top of the viaduct, we send stick up there?
No, not at all. He would come in quiet. I know one time I was with a partner, we were riding, we seen it come over the bridge, but you know, you didn't.
You didn't escort him? You
No,
didn't do it? No.
he didn't want anybody knowing anything. He'd like to be disturbed.
Did you get to talk to him ever?
Only the two times when he came with President Reagan, my father called me over, and it's an interesting story. I was engaged to be married, and to my son's mother, and he wrote, he said, you know, congratulations. He was, you know, making jokes about it, and it was just my father, me, his bodyguards, and President Reagan and him. And sure enough, a couple days later in the mail, I got an autographed picture that I still have.
Yeah?
To Anthony and Naomi, best wishes, love, Frank, and I still have it. So
should bring it on for your set. You're supposed to bring a little knickknack for your set.
I'll make
over
a
here.
copy. But I have
we
that.
produce Stick at Night. It's the next set over from this one. You know, did you bring anything in yet?
Yes.
Oh,
I
did
brought
you?
some- yeah.
Because everything on your set I brought in.
No. I brought in a menu from Clanbrooke House. I brought in a
No. That menu I bought.
No,
that.
the second one,
Oh,
the leather
second
one. The
I
leather
got that
one.
on eBay.
I have a leather one.
Before we let you go, in preparation, hopefully you never see another storm like Sandy. What is the county? You're with the county of Hudson, of course.
Yes.
You're a commissioner. What has the county done to try to offset some of the flooding? I know you put in the pumps.
Well, in Hoboken, now there's a program out with the county streets, some of them, where they're going to do the walls, the resiliency walls. So it's a joint effort by Hoboken and Hudson County, Mayor Bala, County Executive DeGise, the Board of Commissioners, to try to get these barriers in place. But interestingly enough, I want to compliment the Hudson County Office of Emergency Management And also Jersey City's Office of Emergency Management, Craig's
Craig's a great guy.
Craig
He doesn't get it. He's the unsung hero.
Salt of the earth, former Jersey City police sergeant. He does a tremendous job. He's helped us out on so many occasions. And I think that's important. You share resources. Historically, Hoboken and Jersey City are linked together. It's funny because Turner keeps saying, "Oh, Hoboken was part of Weehawken." I says, "No." I says, "We're part of Jersey City. We're South Hudson." He's North Hudson. But obviously, historically, there was a link there, land-wise. I think Hoboken and Weehawken was somehow land connected to them.
What's the name of Weehawken? Was it always Weehawken?
Yes.
I thought there was another name there.
Well, that was up on the hill. That was West Hoboken. And ironically, I learned something a couple years ago. Dickinson, which was a fort at the time, and I always said, why would they have a fort here? But the water reached all the way there, so that means everything from Dickinson up is landfill.
Yeah.
That's
I actually knew. I didn't know it was that far.
Yeah.
But I knew there was a lot
Dickinson
of landfill
was
there.
a fort, and that I was told by a historian. And that's.
All right, I knew it. Even part of Hoboken is landfill, no?
Oh yeah, the Hoboken was an island.
Speaking of flooding, what can the Hoboken do by shop right there? That even if it just drizzles, there's a flood down there.
It's starting to get a little better. I think growing up in Hoboken, I know even on 10th of Willow, when it rained, it always overflowed.
Ridiculous.
But now it's all the building and all the infrastructure aging. I think that they're trying to catch up. Mayor Bala, one of his priorities is the infrastructure to try to get try to figure out a way to solve this, because years ago, nobody lived down there. You had the coffin factory, you had all the other factories, so nobody cared that it flooded. But now it's another city, like downtown Jersey City by 18th Street. The Hoboken-Jersey City border is another city.
Yep.
I mean, you only have 2 vacant lots left there, and I'm sure they're going to be built on soon.
Well, actually, I think the LaFrax got the okays to build on those lots.
Oh, that's on the other end,
that
you
the other
mean?
end?
I'm talking about
Well,
Sandy Weiss's.
That's your new
the
ward.
lofts.
That's your new ward, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, but I'll never give up the Heights. As far as in my heart, I sponsor teams.
A baseball team there?
I have 3. I have 2 in Washington Park, girls and boys, and I have 1 in Pershing Field. And right now, I run a tournament league for girls softball from all traveling teams. They play up Washington Park in memory of my dad, who was a Ferris graduate. And we sponsor that. In fact, tomorrow we're going to order the trophies. That's ongoing. Playoffs start in about a week.
All right,
and it's really
we'll
it's
let
a
you go.
pleasure.
You're going to bring in Jimmy Mack and Bob Jr., Robert Jr. I'd like to call Bob Jr. Robert Jr. and Jimmy Mack on your show?
I would love to. Rob, I go back with Rob when he was, I was a young cop, and I first knew his father. His father and my cousin Jay Romano, who later on became a judge in North Bergen, they grew up together, and they worked politically together very young.
We'll try to get the 2 of them in here. Yeah, actually, Jim McGreevey just at the point, and then you can go out and have lunch, and he'll just keep talking on his own. It's no problem.
Jim McGreevey was a governor that governed with reason. I mean, I know unfortunately everything happened in the end, but he had such a good rapport with people.
I think it all worked out for him in the end.
Yes. Well, we all believe in our faith in God, and there's reasons for everything.
All right, we're going to let Commissioner Romano go. You can catch up with your buddies out there if they're still out in the hallway, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Hello, Pat O'Melia here, pre-recorded segment. I'm going to bring in my guest. He is the mayor of Toms River, New Jersey. And 10 years ago, almost about 10 years ago now, another week or so, will be the 10th anniversary of Superstorm Sandy. And we're going to ask Mayor Mo Hill his recollections of that time. Mo, you with me?
I'm with you. I'm with you.
There he is.
If you remember back 10 years ago, once the breach happened at Manilokan, right just north of the bridge, within a matter of half an hour to an hour, we had 4 feet of water coming through the communities along Silver Bay. Green Island, Silver Bay, Shore Acres, all took a beating. If you were anywhere within those lagoon communities, you probably had anywhere from 2 to 4 feet of water in your house. So we didn't get the wind damage, but we did have property damage. We lost about $4 billion in ratables. It took us a long while to get that back. We just had a reassessment, so we're pretty well back to where we were. Those houses that were destroyed have been rebuilt. They're back on the tax roll, so we have recovered. But it was a costly procedure, both for the township and the residents.
Well,
You know,
you
the
look at
debris
it
removal
now.
alone, as you know, is astronomical.
You know, you look at now what happened in Florida with Hurricane Ian, comparing it to Superstorm Sandy. They had the wind. They anything nature could throw at them, they had
Yes.
it.
Yep.
Think
They did,
back to
and
the night of Sandy. Think back to your night as Sandy started roaring through. What was it like?
Well, it was the first thing you notice is you lost power. I had a lot of people, a lot of my friends who lived out near the water. We said, look, come and stay with us until after the storm. So if you remember, that storm hit on a Sunday night into Monday. And Sunday night around midnight when the breach occurred, that's when the flooding occurred. And it was difficult for people to get out. I mean, we had Public Works with our big front end loaders and buckets. They were taking people off the second level of their house. You know, it was difficult to get over the bridge. Most of the people, thankfully, over the bridge had evacuated. We had our evacuation center was the Barnabas Arena at Toms River North High School. We had a lot of people in there. We had a lot of pets also. We had to deal with pets. It was literally a mess. And then a day or two later, when we got over there, you could see the devastation and destruction. I mean, the telephone poles were down, utilities were out. It took almost until January for people to get back into their houses with power. You know, it was literally a mess.
Now,
And the problem.
Go ahead.
Yeah, before we went online, as I was telling you, a lot of people from Toms River have houses, secondary houses or retirement homes down in that Fort Myers, Naples, Marco Island area. And that was, you know, ground zero down there. So here 10 years ago, they dealt with Superstorm Sandy. Now they're dealing with the effects of Ian. So it's been kind of a double whammy for them. So
Yeah, it's not the experience you want to have on hand. Yeah,
No.
I did this 10 years ago. We're going to do it again. You mentioned the Bay. Now, I wasn't in Seaside back then. My kids didn't buy a house. I didn't have the studio there, but I was working with the borough back then. And what was amazing to me was John Cameron and the mayor was Akers back then. I thought it was the ocean that devastated Seaside Heights, and they said, nah, it was the Bay that came up.
there's the Bay.
That really did
Yeah,
the most of
absolutely.
the damage.
Yeah, I mean, the tide rose probably 6 or 7 feet above what it would normally be. I mean, to get 4 feet of flooding in Green Island, I can tell you my parents had lived there for over 50 years. The house was never damaged during the storm in 62, nor was it damaged during the storm in 92. But Sandy, she was up on a crawl space and she wound up with 2 feet of water in her house. And she never had that in 50 years she had lived there. So they had other Northeast storms, but nothing like Sandy to come close to touching Sandy.
Now, as the mayor of Toms River, what do you do to prevent the devastation from a storm like Sandy again? What can you do?
Well, the big thing we did after Sandy, we finally had the Army Corps of Engineers came back, as you know, in 2018, 2019, they did the dune and beach replenishment area. And the people may not like it because you can't see the water anymore. You've got a dune. And that has done its job. Now, we've lost beach and we've had erosion of the dune where we've had to repair it. But, and the big but here is we've had no flooding and we've had no damage to property or loss of life. So sand can be replaced, people can't. So again, the dune system is doing its job. Mother Nature comes in with the Northeast storm we just had for 6 days. It caved away our dunes. We have a 10-foot cliff. They're supposed to be coming back this spring to replenish that. Hopefully they will. We've gotten assistance from the county. They're going to pay half of the municipality's cost, and we've reached out to the governor and Trenton to assist us with the other half for the municipal share. As you know, it's 50% is paid by the government. The other 50% is split 75 with the state, 25 with the municipalities. But, you know, you got a small town like Bayhead and Maniloking, $1 million in their budgets when they're $6 million and $8 million total is devastating. So we're looking for the state for assistance. They do have excess revenues this year. We've read about that. paper. So hopefully the governor will help us out. Tom's River, for example, has spent $750,000 over the last 2 years rebuilding dunes that were devastated in the last 2 winters storms, 20 and 21.
Well, you keep replenishing Ortley Beach there. Ortley Beach gets beat up every summer.
Yeah, for some reason, the Army Corps of Engineers did tell us at a meeting, I guess it was back in 2020 rather, that when they did the project, they knew there would be areas that would lose sand more rapidly than other towns. And that seems to be Bayhead, Manalocan, and Ortley Beach area. And if you look at the costs for the municipalities, that's borne out. Tom's Rivers is just south of 2 million. I think Bayhead was $1.5 million or $1.6 million, and Manalocan something like $1.3 million. So, you can't plan for that in your budget. We've been able to, like I say, expend $750,000 over the last 2 years, but that hasn't rebuilt beach. It's just shored up the dunes. So to build the beach, we need the dredging capability.
One positive you've implemented is the home inspections now, where the township of Tom's River is doing the inspection. And if that had happened when my kids bought their house, we would have known there was sandy damage. At least now, if somebody's buying a home in Tom's River, if there's sandy damage, your inspection will discover that, and the potential home buyer will know of it. So that's one benefit of your administration here.
Yeah, that and there's a lot of safety factors. We've had older communities that have sidewalks. Trees are planted a little too close to the sidewalk, and now after 40 years, sidewalks are uprooted, and they're tripping hazards. It's a safety problem. We want to also make sure that there's no unpermitted construction done in houses. We've had problems in that area where people have come in, they wanted to maybe add a bathroom to a basement that's been renovated. They come in for a permit, and lo and behold, they find out that the basement was never properly permitted. So it's caused a lot of angst, and we're trying to eliminate that and bring all the housing stock up to what you have is all permitted. It's all blessed by the town. It's been inspected. And I think from a safety standpoint, that makes a lot of sense.
Well, going with my kid's house, before I let you go, everybody said there was no sandy damage to the house. And, Chris Voss did a video a couple of days after Superstorm Sandy, and there's my kid's house. You see the water at the front step. And I kind of believed that there was no sandy damage. About a year ago, just how the sun hit the wall coming through the window, I seen the line and all this sheetrock. Yeah, we had some sandy damage. If we had your inspection, my kids would have known there was sandy damage.
Well,
all right, Mo.
We still. All right.
Go ahead.
Take care. Well, we had about 4,000 homes that were substantially damaged. Most of those have been elevated and taken care of, but we still have about 600 homes that, if they were to change hands and be sold, there'd have to be disclosure to those new buyers that if they wanted to do anything in the house or get any permits, they'd have to elevate the house first. So, again, it points to that MCCO ordinance that we passed that took effect in July.
Well, it's a good safeguard for the home buyers.
It is. It's a protection for both the buyer and the seller.
All right, let me let you go. I want
Okay.
to thank you for taking the time to be part of the fundraiser. It's on tonight. We got you pre-recorded, so you can watch it from 5:30 to 7:30. Tom's River Mayor, Mo Hill. Mo, be good. I'll talk to you during the week.
Thank you, Pat. Take care.
All right, we're back live. We're wrapping up the Hurricane Ian relief fundraiser. Hopefully you made some donations, $5, $10, whatever you can, to help the fine people at the Red Cross. I did get some swag. I got a pin now. So next fundraiser, hopefully we don't have to do another Red Cross fundraiser for a very long time. I want to thank John and Uribe and Fernando Uribe. What do you take out of today's Jimmy Mack could talk endless. Jim McGreevey, former Governor Jim McGreevey.
Yeah, I noticed that. And, always a pleasure, Pat. Always enjoy working with you. Always a pleasure being in the studio. And yeah, I mean, look, Jim McGreevey could have easily hosted like 5 segments.
Yeah.
I mean, that guy.
We could have went out here, could have started smoking again and knocked out a pack down there. Fortunately, we didn't get technical issues with Stephen Fulop. He's texting me pictures of a screen he can't connect, so we'll have to bring him in another time. I want to thank everybody, John and Fernando, but Steve Sweeney, former Governor Jim McGreevey, Rob Menendez Jr., Mo Hill, Chris Voss. I know I'm forgetting some people. Mike Polersky at the Jersey City Medical Center. Anybody else I'm forgetting?
Kim from Red Cross.
Who? Kim? Oh yeah, Kim from the American Red Cross. Everybody who had a hand in this, I appreciate you taking out the time to show up here remotely or in person or pre-recorded. Again, I'm asking everybody, make a donation. You see the link there, $5, $10. Hopefully I see you again on our regular shows, and the three of us don't have to get together to ask you to donate for some natural disaster here in the United States. I want to thank you again on behalf of John, Fernando, and all the guests tonight. Good night, be safe. We'll all talk to you next week.